A woman's place is in the National Museum of Women in the Arts, which opened last week a couple of blocks from the White House in Washington. The critic of the Washington Post complained that the first show was not strident enough or political enough, that it was too genteel. Well, around here, as you know, we believe in celebrating gentility wherever we're lucky enough to find a little of it. So Bruce Morton now lifts a glass to the opening of a new museum.
It's a gala, a big night out in Washington. Music and dancing. And fancy clothes and tacky clothes. And famous people, the Supreme Court Justice, the head of the FBI, now head of the CIA. There are lots of glitzy parties here. Only this one started, you could almost say, with an oil painting of a cat and some fish. It wasn't this painting, but it was paintings by this artist, 17th century Flemish painter Clara Peters, which got Wilhelmina Holladay interested, especially when Peters turned out to be invisible in art history books, mainly written, of course, by men.
I think the Old Boy Network has been around for a long time.
So the Holladays began collecting art by women. Many were well known when they lived. Rachel Reich, Dutch, contemporary of Rembrandt. The story is her stuff sold for better prices than his when they lived, but he beat her into the history books. Lavinia Fontana, appointed Vatican painter by 2 popes, she supported 11 children with her brush. Elizabeth Vigée-Lebrun, Marie Antoinette's court painter, who moved on to other courts when the French one folded. Suzanne Valadon, circus artist, forced out by injuries, artist model for Degas and Lautrec, then painter herself, but her son, Maurice Utrillo, made the art history books. Rosa Bonheur, a French woman who painted animals and kept a sheep on the balcony of her Paris apartment to make sure she got it right. Over 20 years, the collection grew and grew, and Holladay finally decided that what she really wanted to set up was a museum for women's art. That takes a lot of money. Wilhelmina Holladay is very good at raising money.
That's a new twist.
I know, and Carol, I wasn't...
What we did really was not follow specific guidelines as set forth by professional fundraisers. We took advantage of every opportunity that existed. If we had entree to a business or a corporation, we made an effort to call on those people, to give them information, to keep them up to date on our progress, and so forth.
She's raised roughly $16 million so far, enough to buy and refurbish this 75-year-old building, which used to house an all-male Masonic group. The museum's opening this past week was the occasion for more fundraising.
Thank you.
Who to invite to which priced event was a big question.
Mrs. Holladay, Hilda Clayman. I'm so happy. How you doing?
The museum has members in 50 states. Last year, they gave $2 million, which dwarfs what other museums here have done. The list of corporate sponsors reads like the Fortune 500. The ground floor of the museum is for rent, for parties, to bring in still more.
First-class quality that a lot of people have never even known about.
Did people just come out of the woodwork with their collections and stuff?
Yes, a lot of people have sort of divulged. They have these paintings. And certainly in the case of
The first exhibit is not just from the Holladay collection, but from lots of sources. American women artists from 1830 to 1930. There are some famous names: Impressionist Mary Cassatt, Georgia O'Keeffe, but there are lots of new names too.
Well, these are painters we've never heard of before. Yeah. And they're obviously competent painters. And it just sort of proves why the museum...
Some artists, some women artists, say they don't need a separate museum, that they're up there with the guys now. Holladay disagrees.
Less than 2% of all the art shown in our museums is by women. I think that a young girl in our country has to come from a reasonably sophisticated family to know any women artists.
The artists in this show are not rebels. They painted women and sometimes children doing, usually, charming and ladylike things. Still, when Alice Barber Stevens painted this female life class in 1879, she was painting the first one Philadelphia had ever seen. Boys had a separate class, of course. And when Marion Boyd Allen, everyone had three names back then, painted Anna Von Hyatt sculpting a model of Joan of Arc, that was history. Women sculptors were a breakthrough.
Sculpture was exceedingly difficult for women to break into because it's hard material and
Curator Eleanor Tufts.
In order to chip. Now American women and European women before them could paint in their living rooms the same way as a Jane Austen would write her novel in her living room and not require a lot of space. But with sculpture, you not only needed a real studio, but you also needed some workmen to help you with this material.
Oh, it's Betty.
Anne Whitney won a competition to sculpt Massachusetts Senator Charles Sumner. But when they found out she was a woman, they gave her the prize money, but had a man do the sculpture. Whitney didn't get to cast hers until years later. The Women's Museum isn't just for women. There'll be exhibits from different states as well. Kansas is first, and sent works by men as well as women. But it's the women who are the center of attention. New household words, maybe. Laura Wheeler-Waring, Jean McLean, Lilla Cabot-Perry, whose family spent summers with Monet at Giverny, Cecilia Beau, Jane Peterson, maybe they'll wind up in those art history books after all.